Welcome back to Broncos Beat. Gentlemen, now that we have a better understanding of how PFF's 2020 roster rankings are compiled, let's go ahead and move along to some of the reasons the Broncos are number 14 on that list. Let's go ahead and start with their biggest strength, their offensive weapons. However, I will say the only weapons that were listed were Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler. Cecil, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it before you do. Tip of the iceberg for Cortland Sutton. We know, but I will say the same goes with Noah Fant. Why aren't we talking more about Fant heading into the season?
Noah Fant is he's tantalizing, right? He's got so many of the raw athletic skills that you're looking for. And I think this was something that we noticed coming out in the draft was they don't always show up on the field. There are some of those plays downfield where his inability, I think, to adjust to the ball on some of those throws really stands out. He only dropped 3 passes last year, but I think some of those plays down the field really stuck out. And he ended up with a 61.4 receiving grade. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't awesome. So I think there's a lot of projection there. I think both with Fant and Locke, honestly, you're hoping that there is a next step taken for both of those guys. And I think that's why you see those receivers being listed first. Those are guys that have sort of proven it a little bit more, have a few less question marks, I think, coming out, which is crazy to say because 2 of them are rookies.
Well, when I look at Noah Fant, I love the tip of the iceberg for everybody, for Sutton and for Fant. I'm going to steal that one, Alexis, because I love it. And with Fant, it's that inconsistency that we speak of in his game. Can he kind of smooth that out this season? He's never going to be a great blocker. And for anyone expecting him to be out there and be a punishing blocker, that's not his game. He's a seam ripper. He's got that speed. Certainly, the addition of Albert Okwuegbunam has some people questioning, how much work does he get in the red zone? But Noah Fant and what he did last year, I was there in the locker room when he was answering tough questions after bad games. And he did it. He was a stand-up guy. He answered those tough questions, and then he responded on the field. So even when he would have a poor game and he would have those focus drops and concentration problems, he would bounce back and he would not shy away from those tough questions. And I really admired that sort of mental toughness that we saw last year from Noah Fant, and then take what he can do as a receiver. Why can't he be the second best tight end in this division behind Travis Kelce? No one's asking Darren Waller to block, right, James? Okay, why can't Noah Fant be that 1,000-yard guy?
Yeah, and I think Cecil is kind of accurate in saying there were struggles last year. It's no secret. You talk to the people in that building, there were points in that season that were low, that he was struggling. And it's a hard position, remember, for a rookie to come in and learn. You're essentially learning 3 positions when you're coming in as a tight end. You have to learn a variety of things. And he had moments where he struggled, and there were low points in the season. What I do think is the positive is you look at the way he played with Drew Lock. And then you look at the way he finished kind of the season and started getting in that right direction. And he has spent a ton of time with Drew Lock, I'm told, this offseason. Him and Phillip Lindsay have been kind of the mainstays throwing with Drew Lock about 3 times a week. And I think that's going to be a big factor for Noah Fant as well. I don't think this is a situation, though, with Albert O coming in that it's like, who do you go to? Do you go to Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert? It's not like they're both on that level. I think Noah Fant is definitely your target over Albert O. I don't think he should be stealing his targets by any means in the red zone.
I mean, one of the things that Fant did, and I dragged him for a few of the things that he doesn't do well, but you want to leverage the things he does do well. And one of those is yards after the catch. 8.3 yards after the catch per reception last year. You look at the guy that is kind of that typifies that, which is George Kittle in San Francisco, and he was at 7.3 last year. I think he was at 9.5 or something ridiculous the year before. But that shows you the type of yards after catch ability that Fant has. And I think you want to try and leverage that a little bit more, right? Get some of those quicker, shorter throws, help Drew Lock out a little bit, put him in space. You've got receivers taking up attention from all of the coverage players. I think that's a place that you can put Noah Fant in more positions to win, so he's not, kind of taking that one play where he doesn't adjust well and letting it ruin the rest of the game for him.
What are some other ways that Noah Fant can take his game to the next level this year?
For me, with Noah Fant, it's just continuing that chemistry with Drew Lock and then be better in the red zone, right? Touchdowns, not to turn this into a fantasy football show, but touchdowns will make a big difference. This team wants to emphasize scoring, not even 18 points a game last year. Everyone's guessing, is it 23? Is it 24 points a game this year? Well, if you have Noah Fant being better in the red zone and using that big frame, that big body, he's got that speed, he's got the run after the catch ability, as George highlights, but use that frame more so in the red zone. Have more threats there, get up to, I'm not going to say 10 touchdowns, but 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. that'd be fantastic to take his game, continue to take it to the next level.
Yeah, the two quick things, Alexis, are the chemistry, like Cecil said, and he's been working on that with Drew Lock, because in the middle of the field, he has to start recognizing where he can find those little holes, find those little spots he can be. Like George mentioned, there's so much attention that's going to have to be given to the outside that he's going to have room to work. It's how he finds those spots, and he's able to be where Drew Lock wants him to be that check down, to be that guy he can get the football to quickly. And if that starts to build early, the trust is going to continue to build, right? And then Drew's going to keep looking to him more and more when it becomes an area of the field that teams are having a trouble covering and handling, when you have guys like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on the outside.
Yeah, you highlighted two great ones, and I would say the concentration down the field would be the icing on top, right? You can hit a couple of big 20-plus yard plays. That does so much for an offense, especially from the tight end position. He didn't earn a grade over 70 until week 9 last year. Get off to a quick start with Drew Lock. I think that would mean a lot for them.
All right, guys, as far as the biggest weakness, PFF pointed out that the Broncos cornerback position with A.J. Boye, Bryce Callahan, and Michael Ojemudia as their projected starters this year is the weakness. So how can the Broncos strengthen this weakness this year?
Man, you got to have some bounce back years, right? I mean, I think that's the big one. I mean, A.J. Boye, that last season in Jacksonville was such a disaster for the defense. He's a guy who I look at and say, last year was really bad, but am I really going to use that as my one litmus test for A.J. Boye, who a couple of years ago was one of the better cornerbacks in the league? And then Bryce Callahan's got to recover, right? And so I think those two guys make up a huge difference. If neither of those guys can come back to that level of play, then you have 3 question marks at corner. And it's hard enough to win. I mean, look at the Chiefs. It's hard enough to win with a couple of question marks. If you have 3 guys, you're going to be getting a lot of points scored on you, especially when you play the Chiefs and the Raiders, who are a good offense.
Help those cornerbacks by having an incredibly strong pass rush again. So speaking of bounce back year, Bradley Chubb stay healthy, Von Miller get 10, 11, 12, 15 sacks, whatever the number is. That's going to greatly help. In a Vic Fangio zone dog defense, we know that those corners, if you give them less time to cover, they're going to look better. And they're getting less time to cover because your pass rush is getting home. So for me, it's kind of an overall defensive performance. And one of the highlights of Vic Fangio's defense is that it's everyone working in concert as one. So have those guys up front, make the guys in the secondary's job easier.
I think the biggest thing, Alexis, is I think this is going to be a conversation. Obviously, Cecil and I have had this entire offseason on this show, and I think it's going to be a conversation that's going to be had throughout the entire season. I don't see it getting better than where it is right now. And I know a lot of people say Bryce Callahan is ready to go and he is healthy, and we've seen it. I've talked to some people that aren't as positive and don't really know how healthy he is going to be coming back from bending a screw in his foot. I mean, that's kind of a serious situation. and the depth is not really there. So I think this is going to be something. And Cecil said, you can find ways around it with your pass rush and do other things with great safeties to kind of hide it and mask it a little bit. But I think this is going to continue to be an issue throughout the entire season.
I'll say one real quick thing, and you brought up the pass rush. We've done a lot of studies on this. Coverage matters a lot more than people want to give it credit for in terms of overall defensive performance. If you can't cover for 2 seconds, it doesn't matter how good your pass rush is. In this league, Pat Mahomes, they will find open receivers in 2 seconds. So you've got to be able to hold up a little bit. And Von Miller's looking for a bounce back year. He would love it if those guys could cover. It could be a little sticky for 2.5 seconds.
And is randomly considered wearing number 40 again. Like, no, Von, no. 50 it is.